Ja, nu har vi ett nytt bolag på scen. Nu ska vi snacka rymd och teknik. Varmt välkommen AAC Clyde Space, vd Luis Gomes. Kör igång.
Morning. Morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
You're very good.
Yes, I think that is a yes. I will just thank you for your time. I'd like just to take the time to introduce you to AAC Clyde Space for those that are less familiar with the company, and also actually give you an update of where the company is right now, both in terms of our performance in the later quarter, and also where we are going in the next year with our developments, with our investments, and our growth. So for those that are less familiar with the company, we are a space company. We build spacecraft, satellites. We build equipment for satellites, and we also operate our own satellites and deliver data and information from those satellites for customers around the world. We have launched more than 35 satellites throughout our existence. We are present in 5 countries, 3 different continents. We have approximately 200 employees worldwide, and we own our own, as I say, our own constellation of 9 operational satellites that are currently delivering data to a variety of customers around the world. And as I said, we have 3 main business lines. So we do data and services. This is where we take the information from our own satellites. In some cases, we might also provide some communication services to customers. We sell space products. These are computers, batteries, things that people use to build their own satellites. And then we also build missions. So we sell entire satellites to customers that want to own their own spacecraft. And we have been doing this for quite some time. But what we have seen over the last few years is an increase in the need or the demand for information, for data from satellites. And this comes from the fact that as our society faces new challenges, we are being forced to actually find solutions for those challenges. Some of those are very obvious to all of us. Our climate is changing, it's becoming more unpredictable. The environment in general is changing. We are seeing droughts, we are seeing big storms. All of these are things that are challenging our society. And they have impacts that are not just the big weather events that we see regularly. There are also things like the fact that, for instance, our forests are now much more prone to be infested by insects that are destroying our forests. Our satellites are now providing, or will be providing, but we as a company are providing a service right now to actually help to combat infestations in the forests of Europe. Some of our satellites are already being used to generate data that is helping farmers around the world better manage their crops, reducing the amount of pesticides, fertilizer, and water they have to use to produce the same amount of food. And this is increasingly important to improve the way we grow food. Some of our satellites are helping us to manage our oceans and particularly transportation. So we are looking at shipping. We are actually monitoring thousands of ships every day. We are tracking them. We know where they're going, where they're coming. And in the future, we are also developing applications to using the same technique or the same technology to help manage offshore wind farms. As we demand more renewable energy, we are actually starting to use further parts of the world that are less accessible. And so managing those wind farms that are remote, that are in the middle of the sea, becomes a little bit more complex. And space allows you to do this because of where satellites are. We can manage the world on a continental basis. You can look at the entire planet from space, and that is quite an important thing when we are addressing problems and challenges that are global. are not just at the country level, are just not regional. They are global. And that's where we see space becoming increasingly important in our day-to-day life. And as I mentioned, we have been delivering satellites and products for satellites for many years. We have built satellites for others. But what we started seeing a few years back is that customers were coming to us and say, we don't want to actually own satellites. They don't want to, that's not their business. They want the information, they want the data that the satellites generate, but they are not really wanting to own the infrastructure. And so we started seeing a big demand for satellite data and services, but not for the satellites, not so much for the satellites. People continue to buy satellites. We continue to sell quite a lot of them and products for others to build their satellites. But what we saw was a growth opportunity in starting to provide data and information and services to those companies and organizations that wanted to have that data and information, but they were not interested in owning satellites. And as such, we set up a business line dedicated to data and services. And we address this market by providing data as a subscription service. Some companies will come to us and say they want to just subscribe, receive a certain amount of data from us or a service from us. Others want paper access. Occasionally, they will want to come and access either our database or ask us for sporadic access to data on information. And in some cases, we have organizations that are asking us for secured capacity. So they want to actually secure the entire capacity of 1, 2, 3 satellites for the duration. They want access to all data, and they want to be sure that they will get the data when they need it. And these 3 models, we are seeing quite a lot of interest and demand on these. We have several satellites in orbit that were designed to provide secure capacity to customers, but we are moving more towards a model around subscription and paper access. And that's because in subscription and paper access, we can address many more customers, and we can actually, using the same satellites, we can address a much bigger market than on secured capacity that is usually just for one customer. So, moving on to where we are as a company, on the last quarter, we have actually delivered positive financials. So we had growth in relation to last year. For the quarter, we were EBITDA positive, and we were actually profitable. We had a profitable quarter. Our backlog continues to be large, showing quite a lot of demand and interest for what we are selling. And we also saw a strong cash balance, and we closed a strategic acquisition of a company called Spacemetric, that is a specialist in the processing of data, of Earth observation data. So that's quite an important strategic move for us, where we are strengthening our ability to actually process, manage, and distribute data to our customers in the forestry and the farming and agricultural sectors. And we continue to have our revenue for the year, the previous guidance, 350 to 400 million SEK. Of course, as I noted on my notes on the last report, we are dependent on our suppliers actually meeting their targets. We are in a business where a lot of our performance depends on our suppliers' performance, but we are still working towards meeting those targets for the year. And in general, what you see on this graph or on this slide, it's that we have very much over the last year, we have started to focus very heavily on the profitability, on the efficiency of our business. We have grown substantially over the last 2 years. We expect to continue to grow, but very much the objective for the company now is to grow in a profitable manner, managing our cash flows. And so this is something that we are working towards. And you see the evolution quarter by quarter over the last few years. You see a continued growth on our revenue, but effectively what we are targeting now is very much improving our financials, is becoming more profitable, and manage our cash flows better. And this is something that will continue to be a focus of the company for 2025. So now moving a little bit in terms of future plans, what we are working on. Some of you might be familiar with the constellation design that we started building last year. And this is a constellation of satellites to provide data and information to the forestry and agricultural sector. And this was done originally as part of, or this started, and it is part of the expansion program. This is a program that we do with the European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency. And very much we looked for growth opportunities in our business. We looked at what was the market demanding. And as I mentioned, they want more and better data from space. So we looked at what areas of the market were underserviced, what was needed to actually improve the way we manage our planet. And so we looked at gaps in the supply of data and information from space. We identified one area that is not particularly well serviced at this stage, and so we said, okay, we can actually find a solution for that. And because of the evolution of the technology over the years, and also of our specific engineering skill, the experience we have gained for missions that we have done over the last few years, we actually identified we could do a very effective, very cost-effective solution in terms of the satellites to address a market that is the 1.5 meter resolution imaging. This is quite key. Is a key area for managing forests because it's a kind of resolution where you can start seeing individual trees, but also is very important in managing crops around the world. And by making these satellites small and very affordable, we are able to actually deploy a small constellation of 4 satellites, what allows us to actually monitor the same spot, the same place in the world every day, what is important for monitoring crops. So currently we are building a constellation of 4 of these satellites. We have the first launch planned for later this year, followed by a second launch, and then another launch with 2 more satellites. Just for those that are more interested in the technology, we actually, one of the things we are doing is make sure that the bands, the colors that this satellite sees are compatible with the European Sentinel-4 system, or Sentinel-2 system, sorry. And the importance of that is that actually makes, it ensures that this data is compatible with a lot of the infrastructure that already exists to extract information from data from space. So this is one of those things that we are very keen and that we are very careful when we develop this kind of application. Now, in terms of how we address the market, we are effectively looking at 3 main groups of or types of customer for these data. The first one is end users. This is where we address directly the end user of the data and the information. So we provide the data and/or the information that the customer needs. And we go direct to the market. Now, of course, this is a very large market. The total size of the market for Earth observation for civilian applications is around $2.6 billion around the world. There are thousands of customers, and we are not intending to address all of them. So when it comes to end users, we address some key ones that have a certain size and have a certain demand in terms of information that makes sense for us to actually deliver them data, contract directly with them. In other cases, we are dealing with value-added service providers. These are people that use our data, they will buy our data, and they will then sell that data to their own customers for information. So the information, the data comes raw, is processed by them, and it is then delivered. And then in some cases, we are addressing the market by using Earth observation data distributors and resellers. These are people that will just buy our data, they will place the data in a server, and their customers will come and buy and pay for the use. And of course, this one is the least profitable part of the market, but it allows us to access customer bases that would normally be too fragmented and too difficult to access in any other way. So we are working on these three. The first customer that we have for this service is actually falls into the first category. So we are providing a service to end user called the Canopy service. And this gives you an idea of how the system actually works. So if you look at these pictures, the picture on the left is a visible picture. This is red, green, and blue, the same that we would normally see, that our eyes see, taken by satellite, not ours yet. The first Cyclops has not been launched, but this simulates very well what it will be happening with Cyclops. The next picture, the second picture from the left, effectively shows you the near-infrared part of the spectrum that we humans don't see, but satellites do see. And then by combining this information and by passing it through a few algorithms and a few program software, a bit of software that we developed, you start getting the information on the two pictures on the left. So the third picture on the right, sorry, the second picture further from the right shows the polygon. So what the algorithm has detected was problems, areas of the forest where there were issues. And then on the last picture, the one on the right, what we see is then the quantification of that problem. So that is the map that is then given to the manager of the forest, and they know that they have some trees that have diseases, and they have to go and sort it out. So this gives you an idea of the system that we are putting in place. And we have developed all of these. We have contracted with Scottish Forestry, and currently we are talking to several other organizations about the same similar system or similar service. And at the same time, we continue to work on our VDES. So this is our ship tracking and communication service. So currently we extract already a lot, we provide a lot of AIS data. This is listen only, automatic identification system. So you get messages from ships saying who they are, where they are going. But the next generation will allow us not only to do that, but also to communicate back. And so you can interrogate the ship, you can actually communicate, you can send information to the vessel. And we are currently working on that. And that will be key not only in improving security and safety at sea, but also in expanding the uses of this type of technology. And recently we have announced that EMIR-1, the first satellite flying an VDES payload, has been successfully tested. So the payload was tested. This is the work we are doing with Saab and Orbcom. We have actually demonstrated the VDES system. We believe we might be the first ones to have done that. We know that other people have tried, but they haven't succeeded. And our second VDES satellite, Sentinel-2, is waiting launch. We're expecting December, January, depending on SpaceX. But these are all part of our strategy to actually develop a constellation of VDES satellites. We are working with a customer and partner on developing a constellation at the same time. We have other plans to actually grow our own constellation, all in preparation for what is expected to be an explosion in the uptake of VDES services in a couple of years' time. So, just in summary, we're on the cusp of having a great opportunity to grow our data and services business quite substantially. We are seeing quite a lot of demand for the products that we are proposing and that we are taking to the market in terms of data and services. Our background engineering, our capability in engineering actually is starting to build quite a demand, but also is offering what the market is wanting in terms of Earth observation. And when it comes to maritime communications, the fact that we have invested quite substantially over the last few years, we have found the right partners, we have worked with the right partners, is actually putting us in a very strong position to be first to market when it comes to VDES. So we are in the beginning, or we are going into the new year with renewed optimism of growth of our data and services and the continued growth of our products and missions business lines. So I'll stop here and see if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louis. I will start off with one question. You have quite a big order backlog, which you didn't mention in the end. I think it's roughly 650 million or something, or half a billion Swedish crowns. You have had some problems with supply chain issues. Could you elaborate a little bit about that and the opportunity you have to actually deliver on your backlog?
So, as all of the space industry, we are sometimes very dependent on our suppliers meeting their targets and meeting their milestones. On the second quarter this year, we had problems with not several, but with two suppliers that were late delivering what they were supposed to deliver to us. And because of that has quite a negative impact on our revenue and on our EBITDA. Now we put in place quite strong measures to manage our suppliers. We monitor what they are doing. We actually go and visit them. We talk to them. We check what they are doing. But sometimes they will be late. And some of the bigger programs, particularly with the space agencies, sometimes we are not allowed to choose our suppliers. We have to use who we are given, and that can create a few difficulties in terms of managing those. So we have done quite a lot of work over the last quarter to improve that situation and to ensure that our suppliers are on time and on target to meet their deliveries to us. And going forward, we continue to do that, and we continue to monitor them very carefully and to work with them. So the objective is to reduce and mitigate the risk of the recurrence, but it never goes away.
Thank you very much. Another question is, who is actually your end client? You don't mention that much, but I think that's of interest for people. If you could say something about that.
We have a variety. So in some cases, we work as a subcontractor to other manufacturers. So for instance, we are part of the Arctic Weather satellite program that is a European. The end customer for that is EUMETSAT, that is the European meteorological satellite organization. But they subcontract the European Space Agency to do the management of the satellite, that then hires OHB Sweden to be the delivery of the satellite. We then work for OHB Sweden. So that's one type of customer. Another type of customer, for instance, on the data and services, in some cases we tend to work with, for instance, with a company like Orbcom. We supply them data for maritime traffic assessment. They will then have customers like coast guards and shipping companies. In some cases, we deal directly with the Coast Guard, for instance. So the market is quite varied, and it is quite, as I mentioned, for instance, on the Earth observation side, we actually work with the three different levels. In some cases, we are going straight to the end user. So we sell to forestry organizations, forestry companies, farming companies. In other cases, we work with someone that will then get our data, process, and sell to those users.
Okay. Thank you very much. One final question. You talked a lot about profitability in your presentation, and in the long term, do you think you can leverage your margins, or how will that develop in a little bit more long run?
So we have parallel activities. One is well known, that is our move to data and services, that is higher profitability, higher margin business. On the other side, in parallel with that, we have done quite a lot of work on becoming more efficient, particularly in our hardware business. Hardware business has pretty much fixed margins. The price is set by the market. So we have to actually gain our margin, improve our margin by becoming more efficient on the way we do things, producing more batch production, selling more standard products. That usually we can improve our margins that way.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Luis. We have to go on in our schedule here. So thank you for the presentation and have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.